Welcome back, everybody, to another episode, the fourth episode of the Wrestling Estate Freak Show. My name is Jack Goodwillie, and joining me today is a very special guest from across the pond, the UK's very own Stephen Jackson. Stephen, how you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. I unfortunately sprained my ankle at the weekend, but it's healing up now nicely, but it's just going to take a while. So I would like to give a shout out to Takahashi over in New Japan, because I know that he suffered a neck injury over on the weekend, and I hope that he's okay. But no, I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, well, Takahashi's definitely going to be a point of topic today. Brutal injury. It's good to see that you're on the mend to a football injury, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that. Could say football injury due to copious amounts of alcohol and jollying over us getting through to the semi-final, which is tomorrow evening. So we'll see if we can make it through to the first final in my lifetime and probably many other people's lifetimes as well in the World Cup. And we've got either Belgium or France to look forward to in the finals. So no, it should be good to see what happens.
Dude, you talk about pro wrestling storytelling. I mean, does it get any better than England in the World Cup? This is a team synonymous with failure over a long period of time, over several generations of outstanding players. And now they look, I mean, Croatia's a tough matchup. They're really strong in the middle of the field. But, man, if they can get past that and maybe play Belgium in the final, those two teams matched up in the group stage, and that was a slobber knocker.
It was, yeah. I mean, the other thing as well was we had both our reserve teams out there. So once we've got the first teams out there, if it is a Belgium and England final, it should be a lot more exciting than the group stage we had. But no, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, not sure you could book it any better than that. But it is 7:30 on the West Coast. I still have to go to work today. So I'm not. I'll be the first to me. I'm not a morning person, and I have not had my coffee. That comes later. But
it's 3:30 over here at the moment, so trying to get the time. I want to say thank you to you as well, Jack, for getting the time differences right as well to appear on the podcast. So thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. I've been a big fan of your work on Twitter and your ROH recaps. Very knowledgeable. So I just want to get you on here and get your perspective on a few things. Probably gearing it more towards the indies this week. Just because it's more your area of expertise with the wrestling estate, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, you can throw some WWE stuff in there as well. It's just I don't watch it as regularly as I do Ring of Honor and Impact at the moment, and Evolve and the Indies and New Japan. But no, you can find a few WWE questions there as well to curve me off balance as well. So now I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, sure thing. First question, and over the past couple episodes, I've kind of gotten some of our guys' like opinions on the G1, what they think's going to happen. But I want to get yours. I've already given mine. I think we're looking at a Kota Ibushi win, eventually setting up the Kenny Omega match at Wrestle Kingdom. What do you think comes of that?
I think that it's going to be a Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi final. I mean, the Golden Lovers have been around for years, and it'd bring the story full circle in terms of, the Young Buck involvement and the Bullet Club involvement as well. But I mean, there's some strong contenders in there. I mean, there's still Naito who's in the mix, and I mean, he's been, throwing it down over in New Japan. And I mean, there's the Okada situation as well, because I mean, Okada with at the moment, it looks like he's kind of going through a bit of a depressive stage after losing the World Championship, but he might come back and win the title back at Wrestle Kingdom 13, sorry. So it's all to play for. And I mean, after I'm the one person I'm really looking forward to seeing do some really good things in the G1 is Juice Robinson, because I mean, after he won the IWGP US title against Jay White, who is a good worker, but at the same time, I think that Juice Robinson has really paid his dues over in New Japan. I think that Juice Robinson hopefully will have a really good tournament. And also, I mean, there is Zack Sabre Jr. as well, but I think because he's more into the tag team scene at the moment with Suzuki, I think that it's more going to be around the Juice Robinson situation, which I'm looking forward to. But I think a Kota Ibushi win would definitely be, what I'd like to see, and I think everyone would like to see. And like I said, it'd bring the story full circle, and it'd just be an incredible, amazing, main event. If it wasn't the main event, I mean, I think it would actually blow Okada and Omega out of the park in just what they're able to do, because they know each other so well from being tag team partners and from being rivals over in DDT and over in New Japan as well. I think it'll be phenomenal to see the whole tournament pan out as well.
Blow them out of the park. We looking at a 8-star match this time?
Oh, it could be 10 stars. You never know. I mean, we saw 2 6-star matches, a 6 1/4-star match. I mean, I actually said on Twitter about the whole situation of the quarters, and that, you know, you have a 5 3/4-star match between Naito and Omega with Meltzer, but then you get 2 6-star matches and then a 6 1/4, but then you jump to a 7. It's a bit strange, the whole rating system at the moment. But I mean, it could be, you know, 7 stars plus. Just the amount what they can do, you know, in terms of their ability, it's just remarkable. Ibushi and Omega. I mean, from seeing, because I started watching New Japan more when 2013, around like the Invasion Attack 2013, like that WrestleMania weekend with Hiroshi Tanahashi and Okada, which I thought was the greatest match I had ever seen. And from that point there to then where we are now, to see how many amazing matches have taken place. I mean, it could be that, you know, Omega and Ibushi just blows all away with something incredible. I hope it does happen.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to unpack there. I just caught the new Being the Elite episode, and the Young Bucks are basically trying to figure out Kenny's secret of how he got the 6 and 7-star matches, and Kenny finally admits that he's been cheating, and then pulls out the book of psychology.
I mean, you know, that that Dominion main event and the whole. I mean, I was listening to the review from Alvarez and Meltzer after it happened, and that, you know, the whole story arc of Okada's 2-year reign was like over in Japan and people crying and things. I mean, they compared it to the San Martino reign back in the late 60s in, you know, the WWF, and I mean, it was such an incredible, you know, reign. For that to end in such an incredible, you know, hour-long plus match was just a remarkable, you know, achievement, you know. And the story arc of it as well, in terms of the 4 matches, were just incredible. So I'm really geared up for the G1 straight after just before the World Cup finishes as well. So it's going to be a full summer of events for me, sports-wise.
Hell yeah, full speed ahead. The other guy you mentioned there, Juice Robinson, is a guy who, to me, is probably the best English promo in New Japan at the moment.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. My only criticism of him is I think he goes a little bit overboard on the profanity. But at the same time, there's a lot of you can see the Dusty Rhodes NXT influence in his words. I really believe that.
I do as well. I mean, he's one of the prospects who I thought WWE would have gone right to the top with, and it was just shocking that he got released. And I expected him. I was listening to the earlier podcast with you and John. I was expecting him to be one of these people who, you know, went on the Indies for a few months and then we never heard from him ever again. But instead, he laced up his boots and he went over to Japan, and he's just, you know, gradually over these past few years just built his way up gradually. And I mean, you know, now that he's been able to be in the G1, I think this is his 2nd time, because he was in last year as well, from what I remember. You know, and for him to be able to get that spot, and then not only that, to be able to win his first, IWGP Championship, you know, US Championship, you know, I think he's really paid his dues. But I do agree. I mean, the profanity does get a bit too much. I mean, it's the same with Jay Briscoe in Ring of Honor, where sometimes he's been in trouble before for saying certain things, and the intensity sometimes can be a bit much. I think that he definitely is the best English promo in New Japan, and he's definitely one of those people. I think Harold Mieji, I think that's how you pronounce his surname, Mieji, I think. Is that how you pronounce it? I think he's gearing him towards the US audience, because he's had partly a WWE career, and he's got the US, obviously he's of US origin, and he's trying to make the company more global. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what Juice Robinson brings in the G1 and New Japan as a whole.
Last question on the G1. If Okada doesn't make it out, I mean, I don't think he's going to face Kenny again, at least not for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I think Kenny goes into Wrestle Kingdom as the champion. So who does Okada for Wrestle Kingdom if he doesn't make it out of the G1?
I'm just a massive mark for Minoru Suzuki, so I'd just love him to just tear it up with Minoru Suzuki, just because, they had recently him and Okada had the draw in the downpour, which I saw photographs of, which has just come live.
I saw the photos of that.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, it's just come live on New Japan World, which I'm looking forward to watching. But I mean, I think Suzuki has still got a lot in him, and I would really like him to have a Tokyo Dome main event. And I think him and Omega could really do a really good match. Because I mean, he did have a match of the year with AJ, and he had the match he had against the match which really got me into New Japan, as well as the Okada and Tanahashi situation, was the one he had against Tanahashi at King of Pro Wrestling 2012. And the selling what Tanahashi did to his brutal, strikes and his brutal submissions, because he's a legit badass, was, I've just always been a fan of his. So I'd really like him to tear it up with someone who's a legit badass and could, really do some damage to him. So I'd really like him to see, if it was an Omega win, then I'd really like him to see him take on Suzuki.
Last thing I'll say about the G1, Zack Sabre Jr. is gonna probably tear it up with whoever. I don't think he's gonna go over as much. I mean, I think they gave him some quality wins last year, but another name to watch I would throw out there, Seiya Sanada, still very young.
Definitely.
So I'm curious to see how his developments come along, and some more high profile opponents, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, him and Evil have been tearing up the tag scene as well with the Young Bucks, and they just had that great match over at the Cow Palace. And I think that Sanada was, really, I always enjoyed his work in TNA, and I mean, I've seen some of his work in Wrestle One as well. The match against AJ I saw on YouTube, and I think that he's really brought his own. He's just such an incredible worker, and I think that over in New Japan he's been able to branch out even more into the tag scene and into the heavyweight division, which is a very difficult thing to get through to for quite a long time. So I think that I'm looking forward to seeing him as well, face some interesting opponents. And also I love Ishii as well, so I'd really like to see Ishii, take on, who he's facing. I mean, I did read the whole bracket, but it's just, there's that many matches, it's just trying to remember who's where. But it's going to be good fun.
Yeah, I'm liking the idea of Suzuki Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. I think that's a nice, fun, probably third match down. If they go back to Naito Jericho, that is.
Yeah.
Which I think they will as well. But staying in New Japan, let's talk about the juniors a little bit. Obviously, one of my favorite wrestlers in the company, Hiromu Takahashi, ticking time bomb, suffering not the worst neck injury I've ever seen, but he broke his neck. I mean, that's what happened. Not good. He did walk out of the ring under his own power. Do you think the junior division's kind of has gone too far, I guess you could say?
I think a lot of it is that, we saw that it gets back to the whole thing of back when Ricochet and Will Ospreay did their so-called, ballet routine, where it was, we're going to wrestle and do all these high-flying flips, and, and you can see all the gifs and things, and you can see the videos on YouTube, and, trying to one-up each other. And I think as well with people like, you've got the British influence as well of, Marty Scurll, and, I think we've seen so many amazing, I as well have seen so many amazing high-flying matches throughout the history of pro wrestling, from, like Rey Mysterio and Psychosis, who did incredible stuff over in XCW, and you see, like in TNA, like what you were reviewing the other day with AJ and, Loki and, just Jerry Lynn, sorry. And I think it's that thing where you need to, for people's safety and people's, not just careers, but their actual lives outside of the industry, need to reel in certain moves and certain, body parts. So like the head and the neck is particularly, sensitive. And the fact that, I mean, I did see the shot he got on his head, Takahashi, and it wasn't the worst I've seen, because I mean, it echoes the Shibata situation with Okada, where it was the direct headbutt to the head, which you've done many times before, but that particular one was vicious. But I think it's going to be, it's just, I mean, Honma as well, Honma with the headbutt. So it's just the headbutt situation in Japan as well, and just the trauma to the head, which I think is still, too much. And especially with the juniors being, a lot more high flying and, doing a lot more around the ring, I think they just need to reel it in a bit, because it's just, you've got great workers there like Takahashi and, even Dragon Lee from over in CMLL. You've got, RPG 3K as well, who I reviewed for the ROH TV review, who are great junior workers, and I'd hate to see them, severely injured where they end up, finishing their careers early because they've, taken a bump badly or it's been a bad botch. I mean, there was also the in the Skrull and Ospreay match as well. There was the Ospreay's finish off the apron to the floor, which was vicious as well. So I think it's needs to be reeled in slightly. That the flips and the dives are looked at a bit more. I'd say as a fan anyway, because I want to see more great matches, not people injuring themselves.
No, I can agree with that. The junior division is one of my favorite parts in New Japan. Always has been since I started watching when Kenny Omega took the title from, I believe. Oh my God, it's early. The name's just not coming to me. It probably will in a few seconds. Just give me time on that one. It's the guy that wears the green tights and has the mustache.
Raizuki Taguchi.
Yeah, Taguchi. Yeah, that's right.
Taguchi. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a lot of names to know. Anyways, junior division is one of my favorite parts of the company. And Takahashi is one of my favorite performers, not just because of what he can do in the ring. I always go back to CM Punk, right? As we saw in the UFC, CM Punk is a C-, D+ athlete, but an A+ professional wrestler. You don't need to have the athleticism to do this well. But if you do have it, and you can lace in all the psychological aspects that go into a great match, then you have something that can really push the envelope as being exceptional, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Dave Meltzer's compared Will Ospreay to the Dynamite Kid for just what he's doing to his body, although it's hard to say how the injuries are exactly piling up because he hasn't really suffered a real significant neck injury like Takahashi just suffered. But it's reasonable to think he could be next, right? Just because of all the crazy shit he does in his matches. And as much as I appreciate that, I would say both Takahashi and Kushida are still both ahead of Will in my mind, just because I still think Ospreay, much like a young AJ Styles did and eventually learned and got and then became the best wrestler in the world, still has a long way to go in terms of understanding psychology and knowing it's not always about the quantity of big moves, but when you use them, when you pull out the tools in your toolbox and knowing when to hold and when to fold them, I guess.
It's moderation. And I mean, Kushida's one person as well thankfully you reminded me of, who's another incredible wrestler. I mean, the matches he had with Kyle O'Reilly a few years ago over in New Japan when they were in the finals of the Super Junior tournament were brilliant as well. And I mean, him and Ospreay have great chemistry as well. But I think the problem with Ospreay as well is that he's wrestling so many matches for so many different promotions, and his turnaround is so quick and the style what he's got. The problem is that you can't, like what Meltzer said, I've heard, you can't sustain that sort of style of wrestling for so long, or else it's going to end up catching up with you. Because I mean, there was the time earlier this year when he was over facing Matt Riddle for the Super Show, the Mercury Rising Super Show with WWN, where they said he was particularly banged up, and although it was a phenomenal match, it could have been even better had he not already had those other matches, and it was picked up, and it was it was scary because I mean, Riddle was a former UFC fighter, and he's a brilliant, amazing pro wrestler, but it could end up being another severe injury like we were saying about Takahashi and things. So I mean, I think he does remind me of the Dynamite Kid, but I see more of, like you've just said, the AJ in him more, I think, because he's got a lot more of the daredevil side of him. I think the Dynamite Kid was a bit more Ospreay's not very aggressive. He's a lot more sort of theatrical, whereas the Dynamite Kid, when you watch his matches back, especially against Tiger Mask and even Davey Boy and Brett, the violence in his in his strikes and things are just vicious, whereas Ospreay reels that in a bit, thankfully. But no, I mean, it's going to be good to see what happens with Ospreay, I think, for the future.
Yeah, we're kind of getting on a tangent, but that's cool. We do that's what we do. That's what the show's all about. It's weird because Dave made the Dynamite Kid comparison to Osprey, but when we think of the Dynamite Kid, it was always Benoit modeled himself after the Dynamite Kid. But when I watch Osprey, I don't think of Benoit. Is that weird?
No, I never think of Osprey when I never think of Benoit when I see Osprey. I mean, there were two completely different styles of working. Osprey he's even said in interviews that it was more influenced by the early 2000 indie style of AJ, of Christopher Daniels, of Lucky. Those were the guys who he said, it was for High Spots, I think, the interview, where he said those were the guys who he really latched onto, especially AJ, where they were able to not only tell incredible stories, but just innovate such amazing moves like, Rey Mysterio did beforehand. So, but I've never seen, Benoit. I haven't seen Benoit in anybody, really, to be honest. Not even in, any Canadian workers, which is quite, surprising. But no, I haven't. I mean, possibly Davey Richards, maybe in Ring of Honor when he was there, but I haven't really seen him in anyone else, just because of the intensity of him. Just. He wouldn't really want to be compared to him, I don't think, now, especially due to the situation, what happened. But, he wouldn't be flattering, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that one myself. And that's as a huge fan of the guy's work. Where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. No, I can definitely see the AJ and Daniels influence, but kind of bring it back around to neck injuries. Next to the Steve Austin, Owen Hart pile driver, I think maybe the worst neck injury I've seen was the Christopher Daniels neck injury in WCW. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I've seen that on YouTube. Yeah, that was nasty. Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of gets folded in half, like an accordion, and then he gets up and he's running the ropes and he can't move like half his body.
Yeah. I mean, I recently watched I'm amazed it wasn't a neck injury. I recently watched the Goldberg Steiner match from, I think it was Halloween, Fall Brawl 2000 from the Goldberg Blu-ray. And there was a spot where Steiner had Goldberg on the top rope and he literally slammed him right. He landed right on the top of his head. Have you seen the video? Have you seen the match? I'm presuming you may have seen the match. I don't know. But he landed so hard on his head that he literally couldn't stand up afterwards. And I thought that literally that broken his neck. You know what I mean? It was just like, I've never seen anything like it. It was just vicious. But that Christopher Daniels one was nasty. WCW must have a lot of injuries like that.
Yeah. I think the moral of this is I want to see good matches, but I also don't want to see anybody get hurt. The Shibata thing is the Shibata thing is not too far off in the distance now. To where we can just forget that never happened. And obviously it's a different injury. It's a concussion. Well, it's beyond that really. Versus a neck injury. And, wrestlers have come back from neck injuries before. Sean Waltman came back from 2. So I don't think Takahashi's done, but I think it is a wake up call to that style.
Yeah.
I love the matches and I love the characters. Takahashi is the best because he's the best character. And Kushida on the babyface side of that too. And I've heard Osprey's promos. They're great. They're really good to great. Maybe working more of that type of personality into his matches rather than just unleashing every single time out there will add some longevity. But I also know he doesn't want to wrestle that long. So
no.
So it's a fine line to walk for sure.
Definitely. It's it's scary, but as long as people, like what Bret Hart said, he always kept everybody safe, and as long as they respect each other's opponents and keep each other safe, that's the main thing, because we all want to see great matches, and it's about safe more than anything.
Oh yeah, excellent segue, by the way, because the next subject is the Seth Rollins interview that I caught yesterday on Reddit. Basically, Seth was asked about Bret Hart's comments about him being an unsafe worker, and his reaction was just kind of to laugh it off. But you're absolutely right. Not only was, and go back and watch any Bret Hart match, not only was the best in making his offense look real. He never hurt anybody, and it was amazing in some ways, just how real he made it all look. And then you'll hear like interviews with his opponents, and they'll say that yeah, he was a pleasure to work with.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you make of that?
I think Seth's got a very reckless moveset more so than him as a worker. I mean, from watching him in Ring of Honor as Tyler Black, I mean, the buckle bomb. I mean, there was a buckle bomb he did to Bryan Danielson back in New Horizons in 2008, which broke the ring. It like broke the top rope, the top turnbuckle off, the turnbuckle itself. So it's vicious. And I mean, it happened with Sting as well, where Sting was, not a spring chicken, he's a 50-year-old, veteran. And, if he was going to end up getting an injury from one particular move, it was going to be the buckle bomb into the corner. And I mean, I've seen Michael Elgin do it, and, he seems a bit safer when he does it than what Seth does. But I think with Seth, he's just got a very reckless moveset, and I think it's being able to, again, make sure that he does his moves safely, because they are a bit more on the violent side, you might say, especially for WWE taste. There are still sort of tinges of the Ring of Honor sort of style in there, like with the curb stomp as well, which, is kind of, like with Randy Orton's punt, which was years ago, which, can cause severe, head trauma. I don't think he is a unsafe worker. I mean, I've seen him, in so many matches which have been, no one's ever been injured. I mean, if you're going to rate somebody on safety and, you rank it by how many injuries somebody's caused to the other competitors, I think it's a bit, I love Brett. I love Brett more than anybody, but I think it's a bit harsh to say that when I don't think he's unsafe, Seth. I think he's just got some unsafe moves which might just need to be monitored. Maybe it's like when Hoovy used to do the 450 and he ended up breaking people's noses. It's like, you just have to make sure that they're in the right position or that they're at the right moment to, can we go, let's do it, rather than just doing it recklessly and ended up hurting somebody so they fall and end up misjudging it themselves. That's what I'd say.
Interesting. I think it well, first off, I think John Cena heard that interview and found it to be quite the knee slapper.
I love John Cena.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love John Cena, mate.
Yeah. I think it's a mistake to just laugh off Brett's criticism like that. I mean, the best example I can give is a match. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast or this podcast or another podcast, but I think the best example I can give of Brett just being awesome is a match I saw him have on an In Your House show with Pierre-Carl Ouye.
I love that match.
Yeah, Jean-Pierre Lafitte, the Pirate.
Yeah, brilliant.
Where the match is built around Lafitte taking Brett's jacket.
Yeah.
And Brett having to beat him to get it back. But the match is incredible. And honestly, like, I watched Lafitte and I'm like, oh my God, this is Brett's. It's almost like I'm watching Brett versus Kevin Owens right now.
It was that surprised me, that match, because I saw that on the Brett unreleased Blu-ray, and I'd been wanting to watch that match for a long time. And I thought the match wouldn't be. I mean, compared to the rest of the matches on that side, I didn't think it'd be that good. But I mean, that's probably one of my favorite Bret Hart matches. And the start of that match, where he runs through the ropes and he does the suicide dive onto him, but he'll land. He doesn't. He overshoots, and then he ends up doing a somersault in the. Into the entrance way. I think it's just phenomenal. It's a different style for Brett, but I mean, I don't think he should laugh them off, Seth. But Brett as well is he knows his stuff. So I think Seth just needs to kind of take note of what Brett was saying more than anything. I think it's I wouldn't say he's unsafe, Seth, but I'd say that he needs to take seriously what a veteran's saying to him, because it can come back and bite you if you're not careful.
Yeah, I agree with that. Listen, Seth is the best primetime main event worker in the company right now. Next to maybe AJ Styles, definitely on Raw, I would say. And I hope that his upcoming Iron Man match with Dolph Ziggler gets the shine it needs, but I don't think Brett's advice is ever something to laugh off. I do think there are I won't mention any names, but I do think there are wrestlers in the back that can heat that a lot more than Seth. I don't think Seth's dangerous. I agree with you 100% on the moveset, But I will also say he's got maybe the most unique moveset of anybody in the company. Like, we weren't seeing the curb stomp before him. We weren't seeing the roll through superplex.
Yeah,
before
I forgot
him.
about that one. Yeah.
So he's brought a lot of new stuff to the table in a day and age where it's really hard to show the audience anything new.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite Raw matches from a few. Sorry to interrupt, but one of my favorite.
Even the Buckle Bomb wasn't a WWE thing till he introduced it.
No, I mean, one of my favorite matches, which I thought was quite reckless, but it was incredible, was Neville versus Seth Rollins a few years ago from Raw, where the stuff they were doing was just unparalleled with stuff you'd ordinarily see on Monday Night Raw, and that was just all the house down doing stuff what would be possibly seen as reckless, but they both ended up being safe and made it to the back safely, and it was Phoenix splashes, and I think the moveset is quite not reckless, dangerous, but if you know how to, if you're a trained professional, then it's okay if accidents happen. That's one of the other things as well. But Seth should take note of what's saying. You don't want to keep coming back from other people in the industry, I think.
I remember that match. Neville hitting the red arrow, only for Seth to kick out. That was almost like a Money in the Bank pop. That was
brilliant.
Yeah, it was. It was. So yeah, I mean, I don't think Brett's advice is anything to laugh off, but maybe I don't know. Like I said, I think it'd be better applied to other guys in the company for sure. Let's move on to another guy who you're probably not too happy about his usage right now, and that's Kevin Owens. Now hear me out. Kevin Owens versus Braun Strowman is like this big comedy angle, right? He did the Shania Twain show, and then he wanted her to play her that song, and then she was like, "No, you have to beat Braun Strowman, and then I'll play you the song when I come back to Montreal." And it's all haha, it's funny and stuff. But did you know that the video from last night with I guess Braun rolling Kevin around in a porta potty?
No, I mean I haven't watched Raw for a long time. So I saw him getting thrown off the stage in the portal. Is that the one you're talking about? That was on. You're talking about a different segment. Yeah, is that the one? Yeah,
that's it. That's the highest viewed video from last night's Raw, which could say a lot about the state of the current show, or maybe the fact that there's something. These guys maybe have something. I don't know. What do you make of Kevin Owens kind of morphing into this comedy heel in WWE? I
mean, I've always been a huge fan of Kevin Steen. I mean, if you read one of my Ring of Honor articles I've written, about the 5 matches, the 2 of the matches I couldn't fit on because I was only choosing 5 with the Steen and Jericho matches, and both as a tag team and both as enemies. They were he's an incredible worker, and the way he's been used in WWE, I think now it's not. Kevin's really funny. Like, if you listen to him just ordinarily, like just as a normal person, he's just really funny. It's the fact it's like over exaggerated what is a bit too much for me to take, and it's like the whole like attitude era kind of we're going to throw people off the stage. It's kind of a bit for me it's a bit too much for my personal taste. But I think Kevin just needs to be utilized for who he is. He's probably the best. I think he's anyway the best promo in the company. I think he's got the best interview skills in the company. I think he's got a great look and great charisma, unique charisma, and I think he can do the funny stuff. But I think it's by being really dry and really witty and like being really condescending, like he was in Ring of Honor and in PWG. I don't think it's really this kind of shtick and this kind of stuff for my taste anyway. From what I want to get out of Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, and if you see some of his earlier stuff in Ring of Honor, it's just off the charts. Just the way the crowd acts, and being able to see him again, another person go so far and get to WWE and then be utilised like this. It's just, for me, it's just kind of a bit of a pill to swallow.
Yeah, I hear that. Especially, not just the Generico feud specifically, but watching the stuff he was doing with Scum and just the nasty heel promos he was cutting at the time.
Yeah.
I know he's a funny guy, but I also imagine that, he probably had a conversation with Vince one day and it was just like, wow, Kevin Owens is funny. Let's make him really funny. Like,
Very
and now
squads underneath the desk.
And now it's just like this over the top thing where Braun Strowman just humiliates him and kicks his ass every week now. I'd like to see him, maybe get the upper hand, but it also can't be ignored that for whatever reason, whether it's Braun's popularity or Kevin's ability to sell, this is what everybody's like tuning in to check out now. And that's on a show that had a Roman Reigns, Bobby Lashley pull apart brawl. So I do think that's telling. I wish we could get more main event level work out of him. He knows how to play the bully really well. But now we're starting to see him kind of get bullied. And I don't know if that's some form of long-term storytelling to turn him face or something like that. It could be lining up for when Sami Zayn gets back that Kevin is the one that turns face.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be interesting. Out loud.
That'd be quite interesting. I mean, I've seen Kevin heel for a long time, and I do really like him. I think he'd make a good baby face if they booked him correctly. So no, that sounds interesting.
I wasn't too big of a fan of him as a baby face in Ring of Honor. I think that was more of a result of them having done everything they could do with him, and then not wanting to have him overshadow Adam Cole, who just turned at the time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But who knows? I mean, I'm you're going to get a lot of critics of the way he's been booked as of late, especially. I'm a little more open-minded to that. And I don't know if you saw the bump he took at Money in the Bank, but I think he had the bump of the match when he got thrown off the big ladder through a table on the stage or off the stage.
Yeah, I did see that. I mean, shades of the ladder war from Man Up years ago. So, that was another, obviously, steam, tearing up in the ladder like years ago. So that did echo that as well, which I think was good, though, because it shows that, WWE are trying new spots and things. But again, it's just a safety situation. But, I think I would like to see Kevin go face, but it's just making sure he's the right kind of face and he's not like, coming too kind of, watered down. I want him to be able to, keep his own character in there. I don't need it just to be, WWE, filtered babyface. I'd rather him be Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens, babyface and anything. But he can do it. Just making sure you book him correctly.
For sure. I mean, talent is talent, right? Yeah. That's, it's cool. We kind of just made a pretty cool discovery on the Freak Show. So,
indeed.
Moving on, and actually just getting in WWE, but not really. Did you have to catch any of the UK tournament?
I read the results. I actually don't have a subscription to the WWE Network, so I know there are free matches on YouTube. So I'm going to watch some of those from the earlier rounds. I caught some of the first tournament, and from what I heard, it all sounded like it was a great show. I mean, did you see the whole thing, or have you seen certain matches?
I'm slowly getting caught up as well. I was just on vacation. I'm kind of also getting caught up on my my TNA series. But I was a big fan of the tournament the year prior, and I love that they're getting their own brand. To me, it's almost like a separation of powers. It's going to do the main NXT show a lot of good just by giving some guys some extra TV time, and because it's on their network, they can do whatever they want. To me, it's no different than having a second brand. I know Oni Lorcan is a little banged up right now, but I imagine when he gets back, they're going to UK.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't have to just be UK wrestlers. You can send guys. It's like the territories, really, is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, WWE are creating their own territory system. Because, I mean, I read about them also having connections over in Japan with Noah, who, you know, have not been on the scene for years. So, I mean, they're trying to branch out globally as a proper global company. It's not WWE going around the world. It's WWE being in the world and around, you know, actually there in the, you know, in the UK, in Japan, having their talent being able to fight the, you know, the WWE talent, which I think is really exciting. Because I mean, the one match which I do really want to see is the Undisputed Era against the British Strong Style, Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate, and Trent Seven. I mean, that match sounded awesome from what I read. You know, against Adam Cole, Roderick. I think with Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, I think, because Boyfish is injured in it at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, that's one match which I really like to see. You know, all great workers. You know, brilliant setting of the Royal Albert Hall. You know, I think there's a lot what can come out of it. I think, you know, exposure to new talent as well. You know, people like a lot of people. You know, because I follow Progress over here in the UK, and I mean, people like Travis Banks, who I mean, I think is one of the best independent wrestlers at the moment. People like TK Cooper, and even like from the UK tournament, seeing Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. You know, when they did their match over in Chicago, you know, NXT, it was just like there's so much untapped talent which WWE can, you know, utilize. It's exciting.
It really is. And seeing the first UK tournament definitely opened my eyes to just what kind of talent there is around the world that I'm not even really that aware of. And a guy that participated in last year's tournament and this year's tournament that I definitely think is worth keeping an eye on is Jordan Devlin out of Ireland. He's a Finn Balor disciple, and it shows. They look the same. Their mannerisms are kind of the same, but man, he's really, I think, begun to harness that heel character, and he's going to be a guy to watch on this new NXT brand.
Definitely, I actually see more in him than Finn Balor, to be honest. I mean, I like, yeah. I mean, I like Finn Balor. I liked him when he was in Japan, New Japan for when he was Prince Devitt, and he, you know, created the Bullet Club and things, but just his charisma's never really kind of rubbed off on me. Whereas Jordan Devlin, I think there's just a little bit of an extra something there, which just seems to grab me a bit more than what it does with Balor. I think Balor, the big flaw is that he's not very good with, I think anyway, he's not very good with promos, whereas I think Devlin's got the edge on promos and just being able to gauge the crowd a bit more from what I've seen of him. But yeah, definitely, you know, Devlin's someone to look out for.
Yeah, wow, I've never heard that take before. I don't disagree at all either. I do think Finn's got a charisma to him. I don't think it's quite translated since he's come back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it was more over in NXT than what it has been in WWE. I think NXT was more an odd, for me anyway, from watching him, the audience seemed to suit him a bit more. But I think general WWE, since he's been there, I haven't really seen much out of him. But that's just my take.
Yeah. Well, we're getting on a tangent. When we're already talking about Finn Balor now, I think the big problem with him is the face paint.
I like that.
I like it too. But they did a shit job of explaining why it happens. And in NXT, they kind of did an extended documentary type piece hyping his return to Japan. And in that, he said that the demon is kind of like an alter ego of his that allows him to be more of this. It's like it's kind of like Clark Kent going to Superman, right?
Yeah.
You know, he sort of he takes on a new persona, but also takes on a slightly amplified personality.
Yeah,
because he's a shy dude. You know, he plays with Legos in his spare time, and I do that too. I can relate to that.
Awesome. I haven't played with Lego for ages.
Really expensive. It's the only problem. And I'm not I don't make a WWE main eventer salary. So, but when he got to WWE, they tried to redefine it, and they tried to make it like this Halloween thing with Bray Wyatt, and that feud.
Oh, God.
It might be Bray's been in a lot of bad feuds. That might be the worst.
Oh. The thing with me and Bray Wyatt as well, just again on a little tangent, is just the whole Matt Hardy situation and things. And Bray had with the Wyatt family. I mean, the Wyatt family in 2013 was just when they were face to 14 when they were face to face with the Shield, and that incredible match they had at extra Elimination Chamber. It was just off the charts, and Bray was just killer promo after killer promo, and even the Cena feud I thought it worked well, but then since then I just don't know. It just doesn't. Something's just, whether it's that people are just fed up with the wackiness, whether it's just that it's the same thing. I don't know, but I'm frustrated because I see so much in Bray Wyatt, but at the same time it just doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. And he would just, I don't know, and it's just difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard some crazy takes on him from high-profile people in the business, and none specifically come to mind, but I've heard a lot of stuff to the effect of Bray Wyatt is or was, their favorite character for a long time. He was the next Undertaker. He was, the next real supernatural character to come along, and now we're just so far removed from that. It's unreal, really.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
Are you gonna watch Extreme Rules?
Possibly. I mean, like I said, I don't have a subscription to the network. I'm with WWE now. I'm not kind of into watching it as it happens because I don't want to sit through especially like WrestleMania as well. Sit there for 12 hours watching a pay-per-view, or like with Extreme Rules. It depends how long it is. But if there are any interesting matches, then I might go back and watch them at a later date. But that's just because I concentrate my time more on the Indies and on New Japan, which has become a lot more prominent over the past few years. So they kind of take my time a bit more.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. New Japan can have a 4-hour show, but it can seem like 2, and then you'll have a WrestleMania, which is like 7 or 8 hours. And I'm thinking about going to WrestleMania weekend this year. But if I do, I'm not going to WrestleMania. Is that weird?
No, I mean, that's the interesting thing. I mean, there's so many interesting, promotions at WrestleMania weekend. It's like just the big convention of wrestling. I mean, I'd even like to go to WrestleMania Access because, I mean, we had the Evolve talent there as well. I mean, I would love to go to WrestleMania one day, but it's just sitting there through so much crap, just to... There are the odd good matches here and there, but, it's just... And like, we wanted John Cena and The Undertaker 10 years ago, not now. And, it's just like a 2-minute squash just because Undertaker, isn't who he was. And, Cena's just, kind of having a downtime from the company. I think, there's so much more to watch. But no, I don't think that's, strange at all. It's... I'd rather do that.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, I wanted Cena versus The Undertaker literally 10 years ago. 2008 or 2009, maybe 2010.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, John Cena versus The Undertaker instead of Edge and The Undertaker, WrestleMania 24. I mean, that would have just been, awesome, I think.
Yeah, it would have. I'm just kind of like thinking aloud right now. The maybe instead of running back Cena versus The Rock, you just have Cena beat The Rock at the first encounter, be done with it, and then the following WrestleMania you can have Cena Undertaker, and then you can give CM Punk his WWE title opportunity, and he'd still be in the company.
Exactly. I said that many years ago.
Jesus
we
Christ.
Think alike, Jack. We think alike, Jack. We think alike.
Yeah, we do. This is the start of a very good relationship.
I hope so.
By the way, this is the first time we're meeting, by the way. We're just on there. So
yeah.
It makes for good radio. Yeah, if I did the WrestleMania weekend, I'd probably stay and watch the show in my hotel and then go to Raw the next night.
Just DVR it and then just, watch it the next day and then just go for all the crap.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll be watching Extreme Rules anyway. I've taken a liking to going on Twitter and just tweeting about it and just seeing what kind of feedback I get for the things I say.
Yeah.
It's fun. I will give them credit. They Michael Cole is like this robot for social media, but they really put it over and people do it.
Yeah. I loved your tirade on the first show as well about Jonathan Coachman. I was laughing hysterically at that as well about his
he sucks. Sucks really bad. Really, he makes I don't know how familiar you are with the Ring of Honor on HDNet era, but
Yes.
he makes like Mike Hoagwood and Delinquent Son, as Jim Cornette called him, Dave Prazak, look like JR and the King.
I liked Mike Hoagwood. I thought it was all right. I didn't think it was. Yeah, I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, I got. I was tweeting about Ring of Honor announcers, and Ian Ribicani was displeased with what I said about that Ring of Honor have never been very strong when it comes to announcers. But it was only during. I mean, Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness were who made, for me, the pure Ring of Honor announce team. They were, and possibly Steve Corino as well, but definitely, Kevin and Nigel was what was needed in Ring of Honor for them to get over the top. And it, but yeah, I agree that Jonathan Coach was just awful. And I used to hate him on Heat as well.
But he was a heel then, so you're supposed to hate him.
Yeah.
And I liked him. I liked him better. So. Yeah, Jim Cornette once said that he saw a picture of Mike Hoagwood and Dave Prazak and said it looked like a father with his delinquent son.
Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely. I agree with that.
Yeah,
it was very uncomfortable.
I got a kick out of that. And then back to Extreme Rules. Yeah, I'll spoil part of my roundtable coming up, which will probably be out before this comes out, or at least around the same time. But I'm most looking forward to that Iron Man match. I love Iron Man matches, but the thing that I would do differently is getting back to Bray Wyatt. I would take that. They're doing the a tag team match with the B team. I would take that off the show entirely.
Yeah.
No one gives a fuck about the Raw tag team division, and that's really sad to say because I love Woken Matt, and I like Bray Wyatt. I don't like the B team though.
No.
Sorry. Okay. If that's gonna be your top contender, then to quote Mr. Wonderful on the Shark Tank, I'm out.
When the one thing about the Raw tag division, and I'm banging my fist on the desk now, I don't know if you can hear me, is when Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows came from New Japan. Why the fuck have they been used so awfully? They were the thing is, they were so over, but by the time they left New Japan, they were so over, and they came with AJ and Nakamura, and they should have been utilised and been this dominant tag team because they've been tearing it up. And instead, they just haven't done anything, and you could have made them the new faces of the Raw tag division and built it around them. Instead, it's just been complete disaster. But, for me, that I'll spoil my roundtable now. The one match I'm looking forward to from reading it, even if I'd look forward to watching, is AJ and Rusev, because I think that both of them are great wrestlers. I think Rusev should have kept his undefeated streak forever because I was really enjoying that when he first came into the company back in 2014. And AJ is just probably the greatest wrestler, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And I think that AJ can get a great match out of anybody. I think he's actually better than, it's a toss-up, but I think in terms of his versatility and the fact he's been in so many different companies, I think he trumps Bret and Shawn in terms of what he can do in the ring. Because everybody I've seen him against, it's just been a phenomenal match. So I'd look forward to that one just to see what happens.
Well, in that same roundtable, I go on to compare AJ to like the Shawn Michaels 95, 96, 97 of this era, where he's just able, you can put him in with anybody, he'll just carry them to a great match. Give those matches with Vader back in the day. He gave Mick Foley one of his best matches ever that not a lot of people talk about. Yeah.
I love that match. Yeah, they actually had a match as well on Raw, Mick Foley and Shawn Michaels, which is on one of Shawn Michaels' DVD sets, what I'd never seen before, and that was about 10 minutes long, and that was another brutal, incredibly creative match. But no, I agree with that, definitely. That comparison, it's definitely there.
The only thing I'll say about Rusev as the opponent is that you're going to have a contingent that will want to see Rusev go over, but they missed the boat by about and I'll explain this in the roundtable as well, but I think there was about a 9-month window they could have done something with Rusev, and they chose not to.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
He's European. Same as Cesaro. He's European. That's my take on it.
Connect.
No. It's just Vince not wanting to push someone who isn't a US, US origin. That's just me. Yeah. It is.
I heard a story that he cut his hair, and when he came back, Vince was like pissed about it. But he also hasn't grown his hair out since then.
Yeah.
So
it looks better. You
think he looks better?
Yeah, like Michael Elgin when he got rid of his mullet, it just makes him look a lot better.
Well, that's a different thing. That looked awful. Looked like he he snipped the tail of a Davy Crockett hat off and then taped it on the back of his head.
Yeah. No, it should be good though, and I hope you enjoy Extreme Rules.
I don't. I'm gonna keep an open mind. I don't like going into anything with a closed mind because then I can't enjoy it if it's actually good. But I will plant my flag in the ground. I do think that Dolph and Seth should be 60 minutes because they just kind of basically had a 30-minute match on Raw, right?
Yeah.
So what more are we accomplishing here? And I'm just also,
as well.
And I'm just also not a big fan of the gimmick pay-per-views. It's Extreme Rules time. That means we're gonna have Extreme Rules matches rather than letting the feud determine when the gimmick is necessary.
Yeah, I've always been that way out. You know what I mean? And the whole thing of Extreme Rules and TLC, they're basically the same pay-per-view. It's just the difference is that one's got well, it's actually TLC-esque because they have stairs matches as well, which is just ridiculous as well. But no, I've never been a big fan of the gimmick pay-per-views. I think Money in the Bank is the only one that works because it's a concept which you can use to progress a story throughout the year, which gets exciting. I think the rest of them are just, for me, just too much for my taste.
Yeah. I was gonna say something really profound, but I forgot. It's still only 8:30 here, almost. So, oh yeah, the only exception to the whole gimmick pay-per-view thing, I would say, is TNA Lockdown, because it was the only pay-per-view they did a year that had that.
Yeah, and they're actually exciting matches, some of them. I mean, not all of them, like the electrified cage with LAX and the Dudleys, that was pretty minor, but I mean, like, it did work, and it was, probably their biggest selling pay-per-view. I mean, the Make Out Slammiversary is like the biggest pay-per-view, but really it was Lockdown. That was the one even I wanted to see, to see what happened. So no, I would agree with that.
A sleeper TNA Lockdown match is AJ versus Abyss at Lockdown 04, I believe.
Love that match.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. Yeah.
It was brutal, and it was brilliant.
That's when he jumped through the. That was when AJ jumped through the cage, wasn't it? And then he landed on Abyss at the beginning. Am I thinking of the same match, or am I getting mixed up?
No, that's the one. AJ pulled it out, and then I think the finish is when Abyss, can't finish him off, so he gets out the bag of thumbtacks, and then he gets planted.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay, let's bring this thing to a halt with one more question. It came to my attention yesterday, and it's an indie-related question. Came to my attention yesterday that the new number one contender for Nick Aldis's NWA World's Championship is going to be one of my favorite guys. Not really. I'm being sarcastic. It's Flip Gordon. So a lot of people are speculating this is how Flip Gordon is going to get booked on All In. He's going to beat Nick Aldis and then face Cody for the NWA Championship. Yeah. What do you think about that?
It sounds interesting. I mean, the thing is that Nick Aldis is a British guy, and I'm really glad that a British man's holding the NWA Championship. And I think he's the second man to hold the NWA Championship. So I'd like him to hold it for as long as possible. I think Flip Gordon's got a lot of potential. I think he's a bit green, maybe I'd say. He's still kind of through that. He's still progressing through. He's not been a professional wrestler very long. And I see a little bit of, like I was saying earlier about the safety situation, some of his moves can be a bit reckless, and I see sometimes that like the way he moves around the ring can be a bit dangerous. But no, I think it's it's going to be a good opportunity for Flip, definitely, you know, and I think he's got a good chance of definitely winning the title, and you know, it'd be good to see him and Cody tear it up. Whether you know, that'll be a great main event at All In. I don't know, because I'm quite excited for Nick Aldis versus Cody at All In, to be honest, because it'd be nice to see him in the main event. I mean, I'm more excited for Mike Skull versus Okada at All In, what was announced the other day. That's the one I'm most excited for at the moment, anyway, from what's been announced. But no, Flip Gordon's a good shout, you know.
Yeah, Nick, I would say is probably the most domesticated U.S. British wrestler I've ever seen. You know, he's obviously married to Mickey James, which is awesome. Good for good for him. And then his accent, I feel like just fades like every year that I watch him. But that aside, he's I don't know. I don't know if I'd call him great. I'd call him good. He's a good wrestler. And then with Flip, it's like no, I don't really like dislike the guy. And I like his interviews, like out of character. I think he comes off as extremely genuine and a really good dude. But the style, I'm just not a big fan of. I'm not a fan of the when you make a quote unquote high flying style look like a choreographed movie fight.
Yeah,
it's not really my thing. You know, just not my cup of tea. But it's cool. Other people like it. It is what it is. He'd probably be the greenest NWA champion of all time. Well, yeah, he would. Not the worst, mind you, but the greenest.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the worst, but I think there's got a long way to go yet before he becomes NWA champion, just the prestige of the belt and just because of what it represents. I think he needs to hone his craft a little bit more before he ends up winning the title. And you are right as well. I think that Nick is actually the most domesticated UK wrestler in the USA. I agree with that, because that was what Wade Barrett lacked. I never liked Wade Barrett in WWE at all, because I just never liked him. I thought, he just never fit for me. You know, the one person I always wanted to see in WWE was Nigel McGuinness, but unfortunately because he got injured, it just didn't happen. But he never really seemed to, his work just never really seemed to work in, his work never really mixed it correctly in the WWE setting, I think. I've just never really been a big fan of this personally, you know. But, I mean, there are so many great wrestlers, UK wrestlers now, though, you know, like I say, pretty strong style, you know. You've got all the people from Progress, you know, too many to name. I think that, you know, Nick and Flip will have a good match, but, you know, it shouldn't be Flip's time. It's still Nick's time, I think. I think he's earned it, and I think he deserves to be at All In with Cody rather than Flip. That's a Ring of Honor storyline.
Yeah. Obviously, Flip is going to get booked for All In somehow, because, and that's, I guess, another part of my issue, quote unquote, with him. It's more like, you know, he's buds with the Young Bucks, so he's gonna get looks that other guys may not necessarily get. You know, that's life, really.
True.
It is what it is. But I'm not too concerned about that. I do think he would be the greenest champion ever, because if you think about it, when TNA got the belt, even they did their due diligence with who they put that belt on. Like, I mean, they did give it to AJ early, but I wouldn't say he was green per se, because he was just young. But he'd been wrestling for probably 6 years at that point.
Yeah,
and he'd been working with Jerry Lynn
as well. Yeah, it had been. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah. Are you excited for All In? Just out of interest, are you looking forward to seeing what happens, or is it like?
Yes, I will be watching. But the tricky part about it is, like, it's not like one of these shows where, or maybe it will bleed into other shows, I guess, because they're really borrowing from, I think, all independent promotions. I like to, you know, I'm kind of like a come from the soap opera mindset of I watch to watch for what's next, and it's just a show. But is it? Because, you know, they play out these storylines of being the elite and stuff, and I do think that the Young Bucks are not going to WWE, but I don't think they're long for the independents, if you know what I mean. I feel like they've kind of accomplish everything they can accomplish. I will be watching though, and I hope that Cody leaves that show with the NWA championship. I think there would be a major coup for both him being the son of Dusty Rhodes and for the NWA for having two things: the big name and one of the best wrestlers on the indies right now carrying that strap.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's Cody's. I think Cody's earned his from leaving WWE and coming back onto the coming onto the indies because he wasn't really there to start with. I think it'd be a great story to tell, and obviously with Dusty holding it such prestige with the NWA, I think it would be a great moment, and to have achieved what they have achieved by selling 10,000 tickets to an event when none of the matches were announced beforehand, as well, is quite it's a remarkable achievement. Whether WWE are worried about it or not, I don't know, but I think that it's it's an exciting time with what they've been able to accomplish with all what they're doing. So, but no, I definitely agree with that. That it's Cody's moment, I think.
Yeah, it's incredible to think about what they were able to accomplish. And they will be broadcasting it. I don't know if it's going to be streaming live or if they're going to get.
You went there for a second. We lost power on my side of the Atlantic.
Oh, that's okay. All I really said was yes, I will be watching, and it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
So
I hope so.
Yeah. So let's bring this thing to a halt. Steven, how can we follow you on social media?
I have Twitter, so you can follow me at StJ215. And I'm a member of the Wrestling Estate, obviously, so you can find my articles on the Wrestling Estate, and that's where you can also find my Twitter account through the articles. If you have it as well, you're quite welcome to get me on LinkedIn, because me and John and we've joined up on LinkedIn. So if you want to find me on LinkedIn, I'm under Stephen Jackson. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. I will say, I will keep this a secret between us. But the other day, I actually made a comment on one of the New Japan Twitter feeds saying that I'd actually emailed Harold and he replied to me, and that was through LinkedIn. And then the person wanted to know how I did it, and I said, have a look on his Wikipedia page and you'll find out. But then the person got back to me and said that they didn't know how they'd done it. So if you want to get in contact with Harold the head of Miyagi, the head of New Japan, then you can find him on LinkedIn if you have it. So I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn, and obviously the Wrestling Estate. And thank you for having me, Jack.
That's a pretty cool story. Yeah, absolutely. You're like the Encyclopedia Brown of indie wrestling. So
I also emailed Joe Kopp as well of Ring of Honor on LinkedIn as well, and that was quite cool.
Did he get back to you?
As well. He did, yeah. Yeah, he actually is following me on the LinkedIn, which is nice. And he's very quick at getting back to people. So yeah, Twitter and LinkedIn. So SteveJ215 on Twitter, and then Stephen or Ronald Jackson on LinkedIn. You can find me there, and also on the Wrestling Estate with my articles about Ring of Honor, which I'm hoping to try and get done by early this week, dependent on the football result. Obviously, because it may be a long night.
Yeah, man.
I'm holding up and drinking.
Yeah, well, yeah, don't hold all. I mean, you can't hold off forever. I always say that after a bad experience, and then 1 week later, it's like all is forgotten.
True.
We're all gonna be pulling for England, I think. Because like I said, there's no better booking than to have England and Belgium come out of the same group, and I think they drew as well. Is that right?
It was 1-0 to Belgium. It was 1-0 to Belgium. They got a free kick through. About the 20th minute. Yeah.
Okay, because I remember had they tied, the seedings would have gone to fair play tiebreaker. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So if England can, take vengeance back on Belgium in the final, that's it's just great booking. So we'll be watching for that, And Steve, we'll have you back on again soon. This was awesome. Well worth waking up early for.
Thank you for having me. And I will say as well, just now on the podcast, I am extremely dark here, but I am actually here, Jack. You can see me. I don't know if you can see my face now. I'm a bit further away, but I am here.
Yeah.
It's totally dark.
Yeah.
But I don't know why that is, because the sun's shining as well, which is really bizarre.
Yeah, Steven's doing the Disco Inferno Invisible Man gimmick right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, Jack. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Steven.
All
right, guys. We'll be back next week with I'm not really sure who, but I'm gonna figure that out right after I get off this. So thanks for tuning in and take care.